making $795 trading Apple as we close out the month of December here shortly. I feel like it's been a while since I've done a trade recap, and this trade took a while, and I think this is going to be the last trade of the year. Maybe there's a trade that I enter in the next couple of days before the year ends, but I doubt I will close it out by the end of the year. Who knows? We'll see. I'll do a year-end recap here shortly or sometime next week once we have the full year data. But this trade, man, this one took a while, but it was kind of supposed to take a while, and I think I sized properly. I think I did a good job on this trade of sizing the way I should have. And I'll explain a little more details into all that here as we kind of get into it. So on the 10K account, we made $225 or $224 roughly. And on the 25K account, we made $570.92. So if you've been following, I mean, I haven't traded that much this month. This technically is one trade, but it's two because of the trade copier. This is the third trade of the month. It says I have 6 total trades, but they've all been kind of traded on 2 accounts. So really it's 3 trades for the month, 3 different stocks. We had AMP, we had a small loss. We had CCL, a win. Not a big win, but bigger than the loss on AMP, and then the Apple trade. So really it kind of boiled down to Apple, if we really kind of boil it down. This is like the entirety of the month. 1 trade, 1 month. And I honestly, if you were to take me back to the beginning of the year, I don't think I would envision that to be the case based on how things were going and how often I was trading. But as the year went on, I think it became pretty apparent to me what was moving the needle in a more substantial manner and what was kind of like a characteristic, or I don't know, I guess a characteristic of a more consistent or more consistently profitable approach for me based on how I view things and how I, see the markets, how my strategy works and how I trade and how I like to do things. So less is more has kind of been a thing, but also at the same time, I think it really boils down in a big part to what you're being presented with. And I'll be honest, this month, there really wasn't that much that was like, oh my God, that's beautiful. There is a missed opportunity on Tesla that I had, and I was away when I entered this trade. I was away in Hawaii, and it's funny, I woke up one day and it was like 6 a.m. because the market, it's 5 hours off of Eastern time, so it was like 6 a.m., which was like, I don't know, like noonish market, or I guess around whatever midday on the East Coast. And so when I entered this trade, let me go back to when I entered it. This trade, if I go to the executions, the entry was on 12/2. So this is about a 3-week trade. I mean, just a little bit more than 3 weeks that I was in this entirely. And it was on the 1-week chart. So if I jump back here and I pull us up, AAPL. So if I pull us up, you look at this chart and you go, wow, it's a big move. Like, here's the daily time frame. But I honestly wasn't. I mean, I was looking at the daily time frame to a degree, but I looked at this chart and I said, when I saw this, because I mostly look at daily time frames, and I said, like, just to kind of frame myself almost all the time. And I said, okay, we don't have earnings for a while. It's out in January, so we got plenty of time. We had earnings back here in early November or late October. We got a good, runway before earnings, so we don't have to worry about an overnight or an earnings hold. Obviously, we would never hold through earnings on a trade. So because we don't have to worry about that, I was like, okay, we can kind of back into a bigger time frame if it makes sense. And in this case, yeah, we had this level that I was watching, around this 237, 238 area. And I'm like, okay, if we can break that level, I like it. But like, this is not really my setup on the daily. So I said, okay, let's just check out the weekly. And I go to the weekly and I go, yeah, like this is my setup. So when I jumped to the weekly, that's when it made it very, very clear, very apparent. Can you even go to the monthly? Let's see. I mean, you can honestly even go to the monthly, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can even go to the monthly here, and it's kind of there. A little bit better. Honestly, a hybrid between the weekly and the monthly would be like a perfect situation. It would be like the perfect setup for me. If there was like a 2-week chart, I guess you could make one. Can you? I'm pretty sure you can. Like, if you really wanted to make a custom 2-week chart, you could. on TradingView. But so I'm jumping in. I see the weekly. I go, man, I mean, here I am sitting in Hawaii, and I'm like, I guess like at this point, I think I was closing out, or I had just closed. No, I did not. I entered this on a Monday, and the other two trades closed later that week. So I was sitting there saying, I'm like, I knew those two trades either, they were going to hit or they weren't. And I was like, okay, it is what it is. Not that really changed my mind here, but I was like, outside of those, I don't really see much, but this one I do see. And at the same time, I knew, or I didn't really think about this, to be honest, that much. But as time has gone on, I'm like, Apple hasn't been my favorite stock, because if you just look at the history, and I'll pull up the history on the year-end recap, which will be coming in the next week or so, I haven't done very well with it. And so I've stayed away from it. So I haven't traded it very much. And when I did trade it back earlier this year, or even last year, I hadn't done very well. So I was thinking about that a little bit. But at the same time, this is the time frame, where I say I don't give a shit, like, to be honest, because the bigger the time frame, the less noise. And I was finding that Apple on the smaller time frames, when you jump down to inside the daily, let's say, a 5-minute time frame for like a day trade, or even like a 1-hour time frame, I was finding it wasn't really working for me very, very well. So I'm like, Apple seems to be kind of one of those stocks that, like, yeah, it's kind of more of like a buy the dip stock, where like it doesn't really play into momentum very, very well. But on the bigger time frames, it's, in my experience from what I've seen on the bigger time frames, like, you tend to get more of that follow through if you just give it enough time. And so this is one where I was willing to wait on it and let it play out. And this risk was really, this was a 2-to-1. So if I jump back in here, like when we come back into this chart and say, okay, we get in at approximately this 237, I targeted just shy of 260. So if I go back into here and I pull up this chart, or I pull up the executions, you'll see that the execution was at 259.74. So just literally a quarter shy of 260. That was my intention. I was like, 260 is my target, but I want to make sure I get filled in case the 260 is kind of like a resistance point, a psychological level. And if I go to the daily time frame, not to kind of toot a horn here, let's just see what we have. We hit 260.10 and then rejected $2 off that. I don't know. Maybe this thing blasts through that jump tonight, today, or tomorrow. I don't know. But I see this so many times that, like, I never want to sell on the whole number. I want to sell just prior to kind of a round number, or every 5, every 10, every 10, every 50, every 100 are psychological spots that people potentially have a lot of orders sitting at. And so without even looking deeper into like the behind the scenes, the order data, this shit, not that stuff isn't irrelevant, but like, I don't need that. I don't need to have 7,000 things in my charts. I just feel like I just not really worth it. So backing into this trade, I forget, to be honest with you, where my stop loss was, but I know it was literally a 2-to-1, like exactly. So if I entered in, let me see where my exact entry was. I can tell you where my stop loss was. Where was I going? Back in here. So my entry was at 239.35. So if I give you the 239.35 entry on this, which would be right there, pretty much. And then target, let's put the target where I had it, just about right there. So my risk was approximately, that rings a bell, under the 230, which if you go back in time, that was this week. Like, technically speaking, we finished the week at this breakout point, but like not really breaking above it. So I was like, it's on my alert went off. It was on my radar, but I was like, The next week on that Monday, we had a little move up in the morning, and I said, okay, I'm going to get in. So I get in a little bit after that, which is totally fine. When you look at the bigger picture time frames here, not a big deal. That's like, a rounding error, right, in the grand scheme. When you're playing on bigger time frames, you could wait 2 hours, 3 hours. It's not that important, unless sometimes stocks will have huge moves, which Tesla had, and I missed that one. But, most of the time you're going to be okay. So my stop loss is really at the bottom of that weekly candle. So technically, this was the breakout candle. I just entered the next Monday. So it finished at that level on Friday. And I was like, do I want to get in on Friday? No, I'll get in on Monday. Boom, got in Monday. And that was it. So that was December 2nd. So, I mean, to be honest, like, pretty straightforward. Nothing crazy. It just took 3 weeks, right? We had 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and now we're on the next fourth week, I guess. But Christmas was yesterday. Today's the 26th. Market opens up, so it's kind of a weird, period. Did I also think about the seasonal strength? Yes, I think that was a component to it. So that was the trade, right? So let's just jump back to, here's the weekly on Apple. I guess I'll jump out to a daily time frame, so we can kind of see it better. So here's what we got going on there. I will also mention too along the way that as I entered this trade, once we got above the 250 mark, I moved my stop loss to break even. So we did get up. It was up somewhere in here. So back on the 17th, 18th, whenever that period, I moved my stop loss to break even, which was then going to be around this 239. And I was somewhat thinking that maybe we'd pull back into it this day right here. We ended up kind of pulling back down 245, 246, and then having a huge bounce back day to close out last week, which when we closed pretty much at a new all-time high on Friday, December 20th, I felt pretty good about this. Is a deep recap, by the way, but I felt pretty good about it because we had just gone through this on the S&P, or I should say this on the Thursday, or sorry, that was the Wednesday, and Thursday was also a downside day, and then Friday was kind of like a gap down, finish strong day. I felt good because Apple, despite this move down, had held a pretty good relative strength compared to a lot of other stocks out there, obviously compared to the S&P. And then when we had the S&P kind of pull back like that, have a really nice, or have a, not saying nice, but have a nice green day compared to the past 2 days on Friday, and then Apple closing at all-time highs, I go, okay. I mean, that's when obviously you never know, but that's when it was like, yeah, we're going to get TP. We're going to get the target. I mean, I had a much higher chance in my head of hitting it. Now, did I do anything about that? No, I didn't add my position. I didn't move any stops beyond the break-even stop. I was like, yeah, we're probably going to get it. We'll see. On top of that, Santa Claus rally time frame is the last 5 trading days or so of the year, and then the first 2 of the next year, or whatever. So that puts you in the ballpark of I think the day before Christmas, and then this day after, the next couple of days. And so I'm like, you back yourself into this trade. You say you got relative strength versus the market. You got a breakout, and you're into the strongest time of the year. I mean, you kind of had a lot of things going for it. Not that that necessarily means that it's going to go, but that just kind of increases in your mind, your probabilities of this working out. And in this case, it did. Obviously, knowing in the back of my head that it could be the opposite, we don't have to. And there was a period of time where I think people maybe thought, and even myself was like, oh, I wonder, if this moved down, I'm like, oh shit, here we go. Is this going to be the year where we just don't see that seasonal strength at the end of the year? And a lot of people who are expecting it end up getting screwed because they bought calls for year end or for January 10th, whatever. And now they're sitting on these calls. They're like, oh, fuck. Because a lot of people do that. And in the past couple of years, it's made money. It's made money. Maybe not a ton, but it depending upon your timing, it's made money. It's been kind of we just kind of glide up on lower volume into end of year, but we tend to have gone higher. So obviously, you never know if that's going to happen, and that's not how I trade. But you kind of back it all in, and it adds kind of some confidence, whether you care for that or not. I think people get caught up in that stuff. I think that's something I should mention too. It's easy to get caught up in that stuff and think to yourself sitting here oh, all these things: rally time frame, seasonal strength, Santa, all. It doesn't have to work. You know what I mean? I was sitting there saying hey, if the year ends on this coming back to break even and I have a pretty much a break even month, it's what it is. I'm not gonna, me in the past or it's easy to kind of get caught up in that stuff and say, or think to yourself this has to work, this has to work, this has to work, or this should work, or as the narrative or the situation builds up and it starts looking more and more promising. You're like, oh my God, it has to work. Now, in my head, I think the past 2 years or so has turned me to not really thinking that it has to work, to more so thinking that the chances of it working are increasing. But knowing that there's still that chance. And like anything else, anything could happen. There could be a huge news event. There could be anything. Apple could drop, and this is going to happen at some point, where I'm going to be sitting in a trade. It's going to be going really, really well, almost approaching take profit. It's going to have news overnight that could drop us down or gap us down to a point that I didn't think we were going to hit. Either going to hit a stop loss, hit my break even, or it'll hit my take profit. And I have no control over that overnight on a gap up or gap down because I can't do anything during a block of that time And it is what it is. It's going to happen. So that's why you manage risk. You don't size overly aggressively. There's no need to, in my view, based on how I do things, no need to double down, triple down when you think things are working out. I just leave things minimized, mitigate the risk, and roll from there. So with that said, I'm also requesting a payout after this trade on my funded account, which I'm currently... We're going to see, my view is we're going to see how this goes. It's with Arctic Funding. It's where you can trade stocks. We'll see how long this lasts. I mean, I've heard a lot of rumblings about the prop firm industry being shaken up in a decent way this year, and potentially a lot of companies going to have to go under. We'll see. I don't know. But I literally just requested a payout. I screen recorded it all, so I'll post it up at some point. Whether I give a shit or not, whether you give a shit or not, I should say. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I could sit here and lie. You could sit here and lie. It doesn't matter. It's really, do you believe, I don't feel the need to try to tell you that, this is legit or not. I'm just going to do what I do at the end of the day. And that's it. I'll post a payout proof at some point. Obviously everything can be faked, and anyone can fake. I can come in. I could say I took this trade when I didn't take this trade. I could come in, I can make it up if I really, really wanted to. Just like anybody else can, and people do. At the end of the day, the way I view it is like you got to go to bed at night, sleep at night, thinking to yourself, what are you doing? And I really could care less, because at the end of the day, to how people view that of me, it's more of like I'm gonna do what I want to do. You know what I mean? And if you don't believe it or you don't like it, then that's fine. You can just not even bother. Don't bother. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I requested the payout. My thought process is going to be non-bias. How long does it take? Now, it is Christmas time. Okay, it's a day after Christmas. I don't know, but I requested a payout, not a big amount. I request the payout. My plan is kind of roughly along these lines of, if I make, let's say, $500. Let's say I make $100, just to make it easy. If I make $100, and now I'm $100 above the like initial balance starting point that I can now withdraw, I'm gonna withdraw roughly 50 to 75% of that. So I will always kind of have that 25% cushion. And obviously, as you get to second payout, third payout, fourth payout, like if as time goes on, then the thought process is like, well, now you've built up a little bit more of a cushion. So let's say, I keep making money. I'll always leave a cushion, and I'll like to increase that cushion over time. The only time that I will take that cushion away is when I finally say, I'm leaving this account. I don't want to use this account anymore. I'm going to take the rest of the profits out. I'm going to now take that, put it in my own account, use it however I want to, and that's it. That'll be the time that I take the entirety out. In the meantime, while I'm using it, I just want to build that cushion, because over time, when you build that cushion, you allow yourself, it's like a little more peace of mind, A, and then B, you allow yourself the ability to slowly kind of scale up a little bit as time goes on, because you can. I mean, because as you grow your account, you can. Now, should you scale up an account that you start out brand new, or you reset back to the same starting balance you started at because you took out all the profits? Do you want to scale up? In my view, no, because now you're less trades away from hitting the drawdown, and I know that I will inevitably go through another bad streak, and I have to be able to ride out that bad streak. And if I can ride that bad streak out and come out at a higher starting balance technically than I began the account with, or than after my last payout, I'm happy. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of my view. So that's the deal. Into year end, I do not anticipate very much going on here. To be honest, I might not look at things very closely. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'll make a recap video on the year soon, once we have the final stats. But this month, we're looking at 846, really off of one trade, pretty much. Really was 3 trades, one winner, 1 loser, and then the third trade was a bigger winner. Okay, no, cool, win percentage, yeah, but that's, sample size is tiny, and average win-loss kind of in like what I would normally see, maybe a little bit higher than what I normally see, but not what I would, it's kind of what I expect when I trade less, is kind of more the view there. So that was a super freaking long recap. I guess the last thing I should say on this whole thing, if you are still watching, first off, I really appreciate it. You're awesome. Hopefully, like, you're actually taking something positive away from this. Like seriously, like I'm serious. Hopefully, you're seeing like how this works, And really, it's like for me and for anyone to watch, like to see the progression of this. Whether you believe me or not is really irrelevant in my eyes. But it's like, I guess in your eyes, I should say, because in my view, like the opinion or whatever is fine, whatever you have. I'm the one that knows, like, is this me? Like, this is my shit. Like, this is like literally me just posting my recaps for me. And so you're able to see the progression of time. Like, you can go back and watch these recaps for now well over a year, about a year and a half almost now, that I've been doing these recaps where I've recapped every single trade. Maybe not in their own videos. Some videos have multiple trades, but at least every single month you can get the monthly recaps and see like how I was thinking and how things have slowly changed. The sizing has changed. All these little things have changed little by little over time to kind of mold you into kind of where you are. And I think that I feel as if I'm in a really good spot, being extremely selective, but also not caring. You know what I mean? Like, as much as that sounds weird, I really don't care about how fast or how long it's going to take, how much money this trade specifically makes, how much money this month makes, how much money this year even makes. I really don't give a shit, because as you build up the data, as you build up the strategy, as you have like that more experience, you're able to say like, it's all up to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all up to me. And if I want to scale up and take my time and do this, I'll do my thing, because all I'm going to say is like, this year, you'll see the recap. By no means was I right more than half the time. I was wrong most of the time, but I made money. And that alone is pretty encouraging. And then seeing how much I made and going, okay, interesting. Whether I thought I was going to make more, I thought I was going to make less, the sizing that I thought I could make more, I don't know. But it's all information that I said, okay, so this happened. Now, if I want to do this, how do I do that? It's like, okay, well, let's do this. It's really simple, and I don't think it's that it gets that. People make it way more complicated. I always overcomplicate it myself in my head, and what I would think, it's really not. It's such a unique thing, because you can go at the pace or wherever you want to go. At the end of the day, it's completely up to you. It's one of the most fulfilling things I feel, because like, I rely upon absolutely no one. There is no one that I rely upon except me to play this like game, if you want to call it a game, where I'm looking at numbers and stats, which are things I've always liked to do, and trying to figure out how I can improve them, or not even improve them, how I can continue to keep those the same while increasing the size or the dollars I'm playing with to make the net P&L number larger and more meaningful to me in my life as time goes on. That's the game. Long-winded recap, but a lot more than just a recap, I think, in this video. So if you're still here, I appreciate you. Maybe like the video if you're still here. I don't know. I really appreciate that as well. And I will see you in the next recap, or if there's no more trades before year-end, in the year-end recap, which should be a really good video, I think. Detailing that's going to be a long one, because there's a lot of data to go through, a lot of thoughts to be had, a lot of, I want to make sure I take a step back for myself too, and write down a couple of biggest takeaways from the year after looking at the data myself. Then I'll come back, make the video on it, so we can kind of like voice that and put it into kind of one place, and then be able to compare that to next year. Go back to last year, see how last year's recap was, then do this. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for hanging out. Peace.